Update 17 for Payday 3, yes, I refuse to acknowledge that anemic bug fix patch in November, changes the game almost entirely. With a complete revamp of its skill system, functional depth of edge, grit and rush, and addition of weapon and throwable specific skills, some of which are kinda crazy, unsurprisingly, a lot has had to change to accommodate that. SWAT health and armor has been redesigned from the ground up with a new numerical plate system. I'm going to have to do my very best to break down for you shortly, as it warps how you go about approaching combat, and as a result, virtually requires health bars to functionally be understood. To be clear though, these can be turned on and off, and the game is certainly playable without them, but I'd recommend forming and understanding how a build works first before you drop them. Anyway, with those changes to beef up the cops in preparation for the storm of damage skills coming in the 2.0 update, weapon stats have also been totally readjusted. A gun that used to offer one-shot kill potential might no longer have that ability built in, especially with the removal of the 10% damage boost from edge. At the same time, with the right combination of skills, others that you might never expect now can. Meaning we're going to see an almost 180 of the meta, which I suspect won't be as stagnant as it has been for the previous year, which is undoubtedly a positive. With that being said, let's dive into everything you need to know about Payday 3's largest ever update, the pros, the cons, and the broken skills to look out for that will make playing Payday 3 from the 2nd of December onwards an almost unrecognisable experience, both for better and for worse. Let me start by saying this is Payday 3's most important ever update in my eyes, and if the community bounces off this one as well, it really might be time to pack it up. Fortunately, I don't think that'll be the case, but at least not if the 40 or so hours I've put into it are anything to go by. While a number of core systems such as progression and in-heist variation are still lacking, skills alone do a hell of a lot for replayability, and there's more than just one build out there you'll want to sink your teeth into. That's why I've worked on creating 13 separate build guides, including several builds I suspect will rapidly develop into meta setups, which I will be releasing across December starting from the 2nd. That in mind, there won't be a ton of build creation going on in this video. If you want to see more of that, join one of my streams. But I've also worked hard to ensure this one won't spoil your initial experience with the update if you want to go in blind and do your own theory crafting. Instead, I want to focus on reviewing the system and what it changes more generally, as well as providing you with a mechanical deep dive so you better understand how the complexities of SWAT armor and build crafting function, meaning you're not left as dumbfounded as I was when I first booted up the game. Logically then, let's have a look at the new skills UI, which does a much better job at showcasing your options without as much scrolling. As you can see from the top left, a max infamy character at 150 has access to 51 skill points. These are earned at a rate of 1 per level from 1 to 20, slowing as you get higher with only 4 points locked behind the final grind between levels 100 and 150. Most players are in the renown levels these days, but it does bear mentioning. There are 6 overarching trees in the game, each with 3 branches consisting of 6 potential skills. The branches on the left and middle of the screen cost 25 skill points to max out fully, whilst the right side costs just 14. Every skill in the game can be basicked or aced out, with both scaling the higher up you go, up to a max of 4 for an aced apex skill. Here is where I have to inform you, I was blissfully unaware through most of my recording that the old version of the mod loader on PC will totally break this scaling. I quietly prefer the way the system plays with those costs, but it's not intended, and those skills will not function for you in online lobbies, only in solo mode. Back on track, to unlock each tier of skill you will need to equip some skills from the previous one, 2 to unlock tier 2, 5 for tier 3, and 8 for tier 4. That all makes sense and follows Payday 2's logic, although I do think the tier costs are a little steep and limiting. But what is unique is that you can hop over from one branch to another, even if the skills don't specifically align. This isn't as broken as it might sound, as most branches require some level of commitment to a playstyle to really function, but there are a few valuable one-offs you might consider taking, such as leaping across from the powerful Juggernaut tree to pick up, say, Scavenger for throwable regen, or something like High Marks in the stealth-focused Black Hat tree for a marking build. What you don't want to do is zigzag back and forth across the branches, because with most skills being hyper-focused on a single playstyle, you'll need some level of commitment to really see any value. This design philosophy has its pluses and minuses. It's good for balancing reasons, but does mean that truly hybrid playstyles feel a little less potent. The loss of most weapon agnostic skills also leaves you feeling a bit pigeonholed at times. On average though, as a max level player, most builds will likely consist of 2 or 3 heavily spec branches across 1 or 2 trees, depending on how many of the 25-point lines that you want to specialise in. I actually think they've pretty much nailed this one in terms of build balance. There are skills you'll want, but have to sacrifice for those more core to your build, which was seldom the case in the 1.0 version of this system. As I was saying though, another reason you want to heavily invest is due to the basic tier 1 skills which reward you for points in the overall branch. In the weapon branches, for example, you're leaving damage or consistency on the table if you're not grabbing at least 8 or 10 out of the potential 12 notes. That's how the overarching system works. Let's have a closer look at the individual trees and their 3 branches, starting from Soldier. Here we have the Juggernaut branch, specialised in armour and survivability. Not only is this a solid playstyle in and of itself, it also contains some of the best utility skills in the game, including Beast of Burden for carrying 2 bags at once, and Bastion, which prior to an impending nerf, totally neutralises cloakers as an enemy type for just a few points. In my opinion, this is the most splashable line in the game, which will see use in most builds. I think a lot of players are going to lean into more of an armor bag heavy playstyle, even with the advent of actual dodge entering the game. Key skills in this line include extra protection, adding significant damage reduction to accommodate for the fact that base armor DR has been reduced, headguard working somewhat like a weaker bullseye from Payday 2, and the 2 utility skills I discussed before. Moving on to Commando, this is the assault rifle and LMG focused branch, built around raising your bullet penetration and dealing direct damage to the cop's health bar. Okay, that's my cue to give you an at least abridged explanation of how enemy armor now works. A more detailed explanation and deep dive into the best weapons to take advantage of this new system will be available in my assault rifle build video. So, in Payday 3, cops have always had health and armor. The stats were just invisible, and a surprising number of weapons in the game could instantly blast through both, hence why those one-shot kill ARs have always been in and around the meta. Now, their armor has been toned up, meaning it's much harder to hit directly. For example, regular SWATs on Overkill have 4 plates, with the heavies that come later gaining a 5th. For simplicity's sake, let's look at the Car 4. This thing has a penetration stat of 2, meaning once a cop has 2 or fewer plates, as shown on the UI, it will ignore the rest of that armor. So with no skills equipped, our first shot does 1 armor damage to the SWAT, bringing him down to 3, the second drops him to 1 plate below the car's pen threshold, enabling the weapon to kill him with damage directly to his health bar on the third. With the Commando branch, we can quite easily up those 2 points of penetration to 3.2, meaning it'll now break through his health bar in just the second shot, saving a bullet. Simple enough, but why those pen stats are not visible to the player I will never know. I've had to go directly through devs to get even half an idea. Data miners will work out breakpoints in time, but now Starbreeze are willing to showcase the bones of this system with the health bars, surely it's time to trust your players with a more detailed set of weapon statistics. Anyway, you won't be blasting through the likes of dozers anytime soon, as these lads have 35 plates worth of armor. Hopefully, that rundown of the new cop plate system makes sense, because it's fairly important to understand what Commando wants you to do, hitting past cop armor and directly into their soft underbelly. Key skills include Rifleman, giving you up to 1.2 points of additional pen on ARs and LMGs, as well as increasing reload speed, Hollow Point rounds, which increases the direct health damage you deal by up to 40%, and Ammo Funnel, an old favourite, which is now limited to only these specific weapon types and only when you get kills through armour. Without plate up in the game, this isn't half as overpowered as it was, and actually might be a bit of a trap skill, costing 4 to ace out for an inconsistent effect. Grenadier up next, a simple grenade focused tree, built around making your grenades hit harder in a wider radius. Key skills include Sudden Impact, giving you impact grenades which explode on contact, Mad Bomber, which turns them into cluster grenades with a chance of self-replenishing, and Scavenger, which gives you a way to regenerate all throwables, not just frags, anytime you pick up ammo. Honestly, these things are way more self-sustaining than you would anticipate. This branch and playstyle does still feel somewhat held back by a lack of skills to help you avoid taking damage from your own grenades, and the overwhelming power of the other throwables I've yet to cover. But thanks to a few changes to the 4-plate armor frame, you can still do some fairly crazy things with what are now effectively mini nukes at your disposal. For the next tree, Ninja, first up we have Ghost, the dodge branch, a returning playstyle from Payday 2, which allows you to avoid instances of damage altogether. Key skills include Dodge This, the only skill that grants passive dodge in the game, and Under Pressure, allowing you to heal every time you avoid damage, which is as powerful as it sounds. It also has a stealth-focused option in Judo Chop, which gives me a perfect excuse to moan about how some of these branches have been poorly formulated, and the problem with mixing stealth skills into a build that depends on total skill point investment to scale its core mechanic. Dodge This provides 24% dodge when the entire line is maxed out. To access this, you need to spend 3 points on a skill that you don't necessarily want, or be left with weakened stats. Dump skills suck, and are something they've tried to avoid with this new system, hence why this skill placement feels odd. Even with this in mind though, although this tree on its own isn't all that powerful, the actual playstyle Dodge offers right now is up there in the top tiers. With health and smoke grenade focused skills, in addition to the effective immunity Sociopath offers, a state which, by the way, you can still dodge in, it's back to being one of the most inexplicable and frenetic playstyles in the game. Maybe not the top meta option right now, but close enough, and I'm sure that won't stop most players from flocking towards it, given that iconic history it has. Spec Ops is the next branch, an SMG-centric line which has the polar opposite goal to Commando. It wants to strip enemy armor as quickly as possible, meaning there is a negative synergy there if a teammate is running ammo funnel and wants those pen kills to proc. Key skills include multitasker, staggering cops when their armor breaks, and giving you unique instant reloads on quick melee. Cracked, which marks targets for death when you break armor with an SMG, taking 30% more damage from all sources when aced, which can be huge, as well as SM Genius, a scaling damage buff that grows by 5% every time you reload a mag from empty. To get any use out of this, you're going to need to ace it out to extend the 10-second buff timer by breaking cop armor. It looks like that timer is going to disappear in the next skill update, but even with that limitation, it's a better skill than it sounds on paper. Fog Machine is centered around smoke grenades, which can debuff cops and augment your dodge. Key skills include Brain Fog, which applies a strong 50% damage debuff to cops when under the effects of smoke, Poisonous Gas, which makes them incredibly lethal, as we guessed, circumventing armor and dealing more than enough damage to take out all enemies barred dozers and naders who are immune, as well as Escape Artist, auto-reviving you and giving you a 100% dodge chance when you go down with a smoke grenade equipped, also granting you one-shot headshots for the duration of the immunity. As you might have guessed, that's pretty damn powerful, even if I think the damage part is a bit gimmicky, and is receiving a cooldown and duration nerf in the next patch as a result. You might have noticed smokes have lost their ability to mark cops for the time being, although that's coming back in the update after this one, making it possible to shoot through the smoke again and giving it a ton of synergy with a branch I've yet to touch on. Even without this effect though, smokes are outright busted at the moment. Although that's a bit of a trend as we move over to the mechanic tree and the sentry focused engineer branch. Rejoice, for sentry guns are now absolutely viable and even verge on the overpowered. Defined by key skills such as Repair Job, allowing you to melee or shot grenade your turrets to reduce their overheat buildup, Sentry Squad granting you up to 3 turrets at a time, and Machine War giving them a totally uncapped scaling damage buff shared between your entire nest and increasing by 5% for every kill they pick up. As you can imagine, this snowballs quite rapidly, with the drawbacks nowhere near enough to offset the damage they'll end up dishing out. Expect them to comfortably go toe-to-toe with dozers 20 minutes into a heist. I love all the TF2 engineer-inspired repair skills. Sentries are no longer miserable to play around and might low-key be a top-tier playstyle now, although I still don't anticipate that much uptake from the community given their previous reputation. Shotgun are next, a tree that I suspect will receive the opposite treatment. I can't really blame you for it. As the shotgun-related tree, comfortably the most powerful weapon type in the game prior to this update, you're probably keen to see where it now ranks in the meta. Key skills include Point Blank, giving you a massive 60% damage boost at ultra-close ranges, Speed Loader, crucially offering a way to reload faster now shotguns have lost access to ammo funnel, and Annihilation, a skill that rewards accurate shots by giving them a damage multiplier based on how many pellets land, up to 100%. This is how shotguns are still deleting dozers. It's a bloody powerful tree, as shotguns feel almost as consistent as they did previously, actually getting even better over range in my opinion, but requiring just a little more skill commitment to pull off. It also happens that other weapon classes received even more love, so they might have lost their crown for now, although the FSA remains much the beast it always has been. Quietly, I think Electrician, the next 14 skill point line, might actually be one of the branches which outperforms it, giving shot grenades some incredible augments to extend their duration, area of effect, and inflict powerful debuffs on those shocked. Renewable energy gives them 2 additional detonations, as well as the ability to passively regenerate through destroying Zapper's battery packs and mines. Highly conductive, strips armor layers whilst active, and enables reactivations by killing shocked enemies, whilst Electric Tenderizer is where the source is at, increasing your damage output against a shocked cop by 25% for every instance they've faced, enabling you to absolutely pop every enemy on the map, even the now ultra tanky dozers. Hacker is actually the first stealth-focused tree, an early sign of that playstyle not receiving the same level of love. Black Hat includes many of the hacker skills from the original system, granting you runtimes to loop or make cameras mark, which are now even more essential than before without the ability to block them directly with placed ECMs. Key skills include Radio Star, which is a massively buffed version of Glitch Protocol, enabling you to interrupt guards for 10 seconds, once every 20 seconds, down from a minute. I can honestly only assume they did this because stealth builds overall have taken a bit of a hit in Skills 2.0, and so needed something to maintain a consistent power level. Anyway, I digress. Black Cat also includes the loud skill High Marks, granting you and even your crew up to 40% damage resistance based on nearby marked targets, in addition to electrical interference, giving your bullets a shock effect when your ECM is up and running. This is totally unnecessary at the moment, but might start to see lots of play if it can affect bulldozers from the next patch, as its altered description appears to indicate. Hitman, on the other hand, is a purely damage-focused branch, rooted in the handgun category. Note this includes revolvers, but not the Justicar, which is counted as a shotgun. The marking playstyle of Assassin is now tied to handguns, specifically with spatial awareness, tagging enemies near to any marked ones you take out, and providing that same heal and adrenaline potential Assassin's Metal once did. Other key skills include Cheap Trick, giving your handguns double damage against stunned cops, and Bounty Hunter, a skill so overstated it's already getting nerfed in the next patch, giving you bonus resources anytime you kill marked specials with a pistol, most notably Zappers, who return a tool, and Naders, a throwable. You can even double that effect when aced, at least until the nerf hits. This skill is entirely splashable on any build if you want ways to generate throwables endlessly, and is a huge part of what I suspect will turn into a meta pistol stun synergy in this update. Speaking of, Flashpoint is unsurprisingly the flashbang related line. Whilst probably not universally as powerful as shocks, their niche with handguns might just take the cake on that throwable front. Key skills include Hypersensitive, allowing them to explode on impact with a cop, potentially double the stun's duration, Sunburn, which strips half an enemy's armor, and further increases your damage against stunned enemies based on branch commitment, and most crucially, Spotlight, allowing flashbangs to mark cops in their radius and double their ammo drops when taken out. The core synergy that enables so much of what handguns want to achieve. Almost there now, just 2 more trees, starting with Conman and the Imposter branch, taking a lot of cues from what Grifter used to do, just without the rush stipulations. Yes, thanks to Hall Pass, we can steal jewelry out the front of the store in broad daylight on dirty ice. Other key skills include Plain Sight, enabling you to get away with a lot more whilst unmasked in private and secure areas, as well as Thrill Seeker, granting you permanent adrenaline when unmasked and increasing your movement speed with the effect active, an attempted surrogate for Rush. Sadly, this is the only movement speed skill in the game and only applies when unmasked, which I think is going to hit stealth players like a truck. Also, this branch has probably the most inexplicable skill in the game in the loud focus Seeing Red, granting you up to 60% more universal damage when you have some adrenaline at a rate of 5% per skill in the branch. As a 7-point investment skill, this one makes very little sense, bearing in mind it requires full commitment to a stealth set to function as a half-decent loud skill. Outside of a hybrid stealth and loud build, I can't see too many reasons to consider this one, unless it gets you over a very specific breakpoint. Pill Pusher is your standard medic bag line, with a few health and adrenaline focused skills to augment the playstyle. Key skills include Doctor's Orders, a combination of the old meta revive speed and immunity skills we're used to, scaling based on investment in the branch. Pain Tolerance, buffing your adrenaline's damage resistance based on remaining downs, and allowing you to earn adrenaline by doing things like grab loose cash or pick up kills with throwing knives, and Health Guru, which when aced is as close to Inspire from Payday 2 as we currently have in the game, allowing you to drop a medic bag for a full team heal and revival effect, so long as they're within 10 meters of you. The steep 7 skill point cost puts me off, but think of the glory if you can secure a full team revival with this thing to clutch out a heist. Cutthroat is centered around the final throwable we currently have in the game, Throwing Knives, allowing you to carry up to 19 of the things with the right skill combo. The key skills to make this playstyle function are Deep Wounds and Laceration, increasing your knive's damage and giving them a potent bleed effect, Prison Shiv, allowing you to regen a knife for every 3 ammo boxes you grab, and Hidden Blade, a skill that finally adds a fatal melee attack to the game, making your weapon bash lethal at the cost of a knife. Whilst this is as gimmicky as it sounds and looks really strange without a unique animation, you can obviously anticipate a build from me showing it off. The last tree in the game is the Professional, starting with Puppet Master, our hostage-related branch, which also happens to include one of the most broken skills in the game that will be gone after the next patch. Human Resources Aced makes it so that every 20 hostages you trade, you regain a single deployable, restricted to ammo, medic and armor bags. That might sound steep, but with enough skills in this line, a single trade can be worth a total of 8 hostages. You can probably see how this could get out of hand, especially with those deployables buffed in Skills 2.0. It had to go, but at least we'll get a patch to enjoy this broken resource generator. Other key skills include Scare Tactics, which allows you to intimidate and hold up to 3 SWAT hostages at once, up from a limit of 1 previously, and Insurance Plan, granting you up to 50% damage resistance when near hostages, with 10 giving you the full effect. 50 meters is a decently sized radius, meaning this passive is well worth a look. Longshot is the Marksman rifle branch, which might just bring them back to the top of the tree for the first time since the SA precision shot nerfs. Turns out having an endlessly scaling damage bonus might be pretty decent, as Head Games not only increases your headshot multiplier for each skill in the branch, it also scales your damage by 10% for each headshot you land. Of course, if you miss a shot, it'll fall by 10%, but that means miss your target altogether, not specifically their head as I assumed. That in mind, and considering it's based on headshots hit, not headshot kills, on average across a heist with even just decent aim, you can expect to keep pushing that boost higher until you can pretty much one-shot everything. Switching weapons drops the buff, meaning you will need to lean on your primary, but this skill alone might be enough to break the weapon category. That's without even getting into skills like armor piercing, making those headshots land through multiple cops, and ricochet, this game's Grey Surrogate, dealing 80% of a shot's damage to all cops within 2 meters of the hit target. This is much needed area damage for marksman rifles, and when you consider the damage boost that I've scaled up to over 600% before, that's gonna be fairly lethal damage. Remember, this can be used on both snipers and rapid firing options like the FIC-22, meaning it might finally have a chance to shine. The last branch currently in the game is Ammo Specialist, and is unfortunately a little underwhelming at first glance. Ammo is a tough sell when the survivability options are so powerful, with sentries receiving such a glow up, ammo bags might see even lower usage. However, it does still have a niche, with skills like Utility Belt granting you up to 5 more throwables of any kind, so often being worth splashing, as well as Bullet Frenzy and Premium Bag, giving your weapons increased damage and penetration for their next magazine fired. Something I prefer over the previous timer effect, as you're less worried about wasting it. This is one of the few ways to land one-shot kills with ARs now, so keep that in mind. Hopefully, that's a decent overview to get you started when it comes to theory crafting your own builds before next Tuesday. I have a few key takeaways though from my own experience with it. First of all, it's a massive relief, at least in loud gameplay, that Edge, Grit and Rush are gone. If you miss them, just grab a donut and drown your sorrows. For me, not having to constantly consider if I've recently performed the correct Naruto hand signals to be deserving of my 10% damage buff is like playing the game with a weight off. I think in general, this version of skills will be easier for new players to understand, immediately make use of, and not feel inconvenienced by. I think the old system worked at times, and really did try to get behind it at first, but I have to admit, the very first time I touched Payday 3, in my heart of hearts, it didn't feel right. I think for stealth though, Rush as a movement speed skill worked surprisingly well. Keeping it up was a core part of that loop and gave you something to consider during the inevitable downtime that comes with patiently stealthing. It was seldom necessary to have active, as Edge and Grit sometimes felt in loud, but was always a nice reward. Unfortunately, unlike virtually everything Edge and Grit had to offer, there is no like-for-like replacement of Rush, and I suspect stealth players will feel that the most. That's not even getting into a number of lost skills from Scrambler, nerfing ECM jammers back into irrelevancy in my opinion, as well as entirely lost stealth mechanics, such as being able to answer radios from a distance or break out of cuffs once arrested. The trade-off is a couple of niche new skills like Judo Chop and Locksmith to replace pressure points and quick fingers with slightly advanced versions, a massive, somewhat undeserved buff to the guard radio hacking skill, and the ability to actually kill whilst unmasked thanks to strong arm letting us throw knives without masking up, meaning we can now take out cams in casing mode, something I can see being abusable on certain heists. Unfortunately, I think stealth players really got the short end of the stick with this one, and outside of probably finding ways to break the AI with silent flashbangs, as they often do, Skills 2.0 doesn't advance and rather regresses their experience. The overarching stealth gameplay is still really strong, probably the high point of Payday 3's critical reception, but I do think we have every right to be disappointed with how that specific section of Skills 2.0 has been handled. Don't get me wrong, it's not all doom and gloom, hybrid builds are much stronger now, but that's no consolation for a stealth-only player, and there's no excuse for limiting their options whilst loud players are feasting over here. I mean, you could fill an entire branch with just missing skills, which I hope they do as soon as possible. I have to get that moment out of the way though, because outside of what is a pretty ridiculous stealth oversight, Skills 2.0 has totally warped my Payday 3 experience. I've put 40 plus hours into this over the past week. That's not normal for me, and is certainly the most I've played the game since release. I don't think it's perfect. In fact, I'm going to list a few ways I might improve it in a minute. However, every core build idea I came up with turned into something not only viable, coherent, and satisfying to put together, but also warped gameplay to the extent I felt like I was playing a different video game, which, given Payday 3's miserable first 2 years of existence, means something significant. Go into this update with an open mind, and it'll be fun for you to find. Camera marking combos that facilitate a unique pistol setup, a grenade build which is killing SWATs before they can even land in, and even previously unavailable playstyles such as the return of dodge in all of its glory. There's a lot of work still to do, both with Skills 2.0 and the core game itself, but this is comfortably the largest leap in the right direction the game has ever taken, in my opinion. It's the only chance it's gonna get at a second lease of life, and in all aspects bar stealth, they've absolutely landed that. However, getting constructive with it, there are a few general observations I'd like to see change in the future, alongside obviously, eventually giving proper support to stealth players, and being a little more careful about how they place their key skills. Personally, I think synergies in general might be a little too tight and specific at the moment. Let me explain that. Currently, if you want to run pistols, you're nerfing yourself if you're not using flashbangs for the stun bonus damage. Even once smokes can mark following the next skill patch, you're still going to be better off with flashbangs, meaning that element of build expression is sadly lacking. There is a right and wrong answer, which is unhealthy for a meta when that's so clearly black and white. Don't get me wrong, there's still dozens more viable and interesting builds than there once were, but I wonder if Starbreeze have been a little heavy-handed in how they've forced tree synergies instead of leaving things open-ended. A simple change of text to say deal double damage when enemies are affected by a throwable, be that throwing knife bleed, smoke and frag damage, or flash and shock stuns, would fix this entire issue in my mind. And this is something they could consider adding for a number of the weapon and throwable specific branches. For example, does spatial awareness really need to be limited to pistols only, and wouldn't steady hands be better on assault rifles overall? One issue with the system right now is not knowing what to do with 1 or 2 spare points at the end of a build, because it feels like they're wasted unless you're committed to the branch entirely. Making a few more skills weapon agnostic would help with that and make better use of the cross-branch build mechanics. An alternative would be to add certain attachments that enable us to change the designation of a weapon. Right now, the War 45 struggles to properly utilise its targeted SMG skills given its slow fire rate, but it would fit nicely in the AR category with its damage and handling, meaning it'd probably benefit from more of those penetration and ammo pickup skills on offer. A more general concern I have though is how this information is being presented. I've already shared how frustrating it is to work out penetration values, but what about the other key build information this more complex system now requires? I'd love a skill point investment indicator that told me what benefit I was currently receiving from my scaling skills. Then in Heist, whilst a few skills have UI elements, just as many are lacking them, as most egregiously, we can't track our sentry damage boost. I also think that 7 skill sets is no longer enough. In 1.0 we could probably get by with 3 or 4 builds at a push, but now I'd love that cap to go up to 20. That's just how many more viable builds we now have. Finally, on the criticism front, I also think it's probably time, with the advent of this system, to start building out the secondary roster to include a few more weapon types. The Judge is a shotgun, but I'd like to see more variety there, so I can double up on the skill line effective weapons. As it stands, I'm often left with an uninvested secondary, which doesn't see a lot of play as a result. This all being said though, for a complete overhaul of the game's skills, I think they've done a really decent job in terms of actual update functionality and overall balance. It's surprisingly decent on overkill. There's still a challenge here, at least solo. The power fantasy has arrived, but heists are swamped with cops right now, and with them gaining functional tankiness, for once it isn't just a case of the power gap widening even further. Dozers are a genuine threat again, and you will need some sort of tool in your build to deal with them specifically, while snipers are a proper menace, given how they also have more health, resulting in a lot more damage trades most builds can't afford to take. However, if you don't like the horde shooter direction Payday 3 has been taking, you're gonna be disappointed, as it is the quantity, not quality of the enemies you're facing that remains the prevailing danger. I suppose whilst I'm at it, I might as well throw out a few extra meta calls for you. On armor, in general, I think the 3-plate Saboteur frame will be up there competing for the best frame in the game, given how many buffs we've seen to throwables. That being said, the 4-plate Mercenary frame is also worth a shout, given its new passive makes it much easier to stand up to dozers. 2 seconds of damage immunity anytime a plate breaks was always going to be strong, and although the old blue plate regen it offered was incredible too, what you have to remember is this effect works with impact plates, meaning if you can wait out the 12-second recharge timer, you will instantly gain another 8 seconds of potential total damage immunity. It's not as busted as it sounds, but it's still pretty damn good. Speaking on plate types, as we guessed, there have been sizable nerfs to Resistant, down to 40% from 70, and Adaptive, down to 25% from 40 in terms of damage reduction. This can be mostly written off by new DR skills, but is another reason why impact lovers will be rejoicing. They've also both seen their recharge time increase slightly, which is the icing on the cake for the poor adaptive armor users. I think this type is dead and buried. It used to be entirely carried by the plate up replenish combo, allowing it to recharge instantly upon kill, which is now gone, needing 3 consecutive headshot kills with head guard to achieve the same effect. With no clean slate, meaning there's no easy way to bring back destroyed plates without armor bags, I struggle to see a world, or even single build, where adaptive is better to use over resistant or impact. Finally, overkill weapon-wise, I feel the pool has slightly dwindled. The minigun no longer feels like it does enough damage to deserve a slot in most builds, whilst the piglet is still fine, but a less serious option. Sociopath remains amazing, although keep in mind you will need to swing twice to kill all armoured cop types now, but that invulnerability window just got a hell of a lot stronger, helping to facilitate both 4-plate impact and dodge setups. Even so, the Red Fox will be king again on most builds in the game, because although it now takes more than a mag worth of body shots to kill bulldozers, if you have the accuracy, you can remove their faceplates in just a single headshot, which is an outright necessity on any build that doesn't already counter dozers. There are a couple of other universal changes made to the game I can list off, although I still haven't seen complete patch notes. For one, masking up is not on left click or shoot by default. This is assumedly because we've unlocked the ability to use throwables on G with our masks off. And finally, in case you were wondering what the techie shot drone now does with edge crit and rush gone, it encumbers you, forcing you to stand and locking you out of actions such as throwing grenades or using equipment. Most importantly, they absolutely slam the crew AI, meaning you will still need to stay on top of them. Overall, Skills 2.0 is almost everything I could have asked for, functioning as the first key step in transforming Payday 3 both as a game you play and just as importantly in its external perception. You will more than likely enjoy playing this update, unless you're a stealth only player, in which case you're probably a little perplexed by the entire thing, although I hope Starbreeze are quick to turn that feeling around. Speaking of which, this kickstarts the beginning of a newly promised monthly update cadence for the game. They've already shared with us a number of skill alterations coming in the new year, as well as a brand new likely paid heist in January. Iteration on this system is going to be the crux to its long-term success. Certain skill point costs may need to be reconsidered. So long as it's being actively developed, I don't see it getting old anytime soon. In fact, my recommendation would be to open up Skills 2.0 as much as is feasible and grow the possibilities and weapon combinations that feel viable. What I will say though, for the first time in this game's 2 and a bit year lifespan, is that there are now dozens of fun, unique and satisfying playstyles in the game. All weapon types with an associated skill line feel excellent to play and offer meta viability across all difficulties. Of course, I'll have to see how the game feels when it goes live and I can play online with so many powerful builds flying around, but at least as a solo player, there are over 100 reasons to reinstall Payday 3 on the 2nd of December and at least take a look at what feels like an unrecognisable game from what launched in September 2023. Take care, I hope you enjoy all the theory crafting coming off the back of this video, and will join me on December the 2nd for a month of builds. Thanks for watching, I'll see you then. A huge thank you to my dedicated Patreon backers. If you want to join this crew in going infamous, check out the link below and pledge as little as $2 to see your name in the credits, or get 24-hour early access to future videos and vote on upcoming content. Take care, I'll see you all soon.